Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
I wrote down, I watched a couple of your videos to make sure that I got the very beginning down. So I guess I'll just start now. Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel that I've taken over today, where Mr. Nothing talks about all the weird and unusual literature he's found in his travels. Mr. Nothing?
Well, hello there, Lucas. Thank you for stealing my introduction. And I'm glad that you can hear the mysterious voice too, and it's not just in my head. Really excited to talk about this particular movie today. What is that movie? Can you remind everyone?
It is Ghost in the Shell.
The movie that was directed by Mamoru Oshii and written by Kazunari Ito, and it was released in 1995, which is significant because a couple other things that it influenced would come out like 3 years later, but I'll talk about that as we once we get through the sort of the review. But it seems like the people who were responsible for this or made this, like this comes from an adaptation of a manga. It seems like the people who made it had a little bit of a hand in making other things that were also focused on similar ideas of technology, human augmentation, sort of the perils of the misuse of technology, or sort of the questions that arise when you merge humans and technology together. But yeah, I'll let you sort of highlight those kinds of ideas when we get there.
Sounds good. Okay. So I guess we should just go. I don't know if I remember every scene. I didn't write them down, but I guess we can talk about the introduction, which is, I think, the first 7 or 8 minutes of this movie are just some of the best animation I've ever seen, and some of the most like ripping and roaring, what's going on? Where am I? What's happening right now? That I've ever seen in any film, I think, because Section 9 is trying to put a stop to Section 9's police force, which has, Bato Togusa, I think is how you say his name, and of course, Major Kusanagi. They're trying to put a stop to this international diplomatic situation where a programmer is going to defect and go to another country, I guess, section. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure if he's trying to defect to another section.
I think he's trying to defect to America. Like the diplomat.
Oh yeah.
Diplomat in question is trying to steal ideas or something like that. Or so their Major just shows up, pops a cap, and and then just runs off and disappears and like winks at them, and like she uses her camouflage to get away.
Yeah, that's right. I think it is America. It's not, there's just a brief reference later about America and related to this diplomatic situation, which that's kind of like a really wild thing to see in the movie. They're trying to track down this this diplomat, and Motoko Kusanagi shoots through the window, kills him, disappears with a smile on her face, and like, these are our good guys.
yeah. But it gets at like a couple of the ideas that pop up throughout the movie. You have the the technology component, because apparently Major Kusanagi has the ability to use like I think they call it thermic camouflage.
Yeah, that's right.
There's the animation, of course, which is beautiful. The music, which is pretty good. The underlying xenophobia, which again I'll talk about later.
There's a lot of talk about deportation. That was one of the first things that I noticed. I mean, besides the transhumanism, augmentation of human abilities, I mean, with the wires that go into Kusunagi's neck, because she can connect to the internet and all networks, I guess. And she can like mentally talk with Bato and Togusa, her partners, and do all sorts of incredible things. The first thing I really picked up on was like, there's a lot of diplomatic situations and talk of deportation and defection. And I was just thinking about like, I've heard a lot about the like Japanese border police, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but like, Japanese police are very, very strong about, immigration law and this kind of thing. I wasn't really sure what to make of it because there was a lot more stuff that was going on besides this that was right at the front of everything.
I was gonna say the opening credits happened at that point, and it's some of the most beautiful. Like the opening theme, well, it's a theme that carries out, but the opening theme for Ghost in the Shell is some of the most beautiful, most magnificent music I have ever heard. And I'm gonna like try to clip it and put it at the beginning of this video because it's so good. It's worth hearing. It sounds like an amazing work of art that amplifies this movie even more so than it already is. So I just feel like most of the time you can skip the opening credits of any movie, but this one, like it's good to hear like the sort of voices and the music and instrumentation that they're using there.
Yeah. I was listening to it earlier, like when you messaged me about how I think you sent me the song on YouTube. And one of the top comments, I think, like really rings true. The top comment that I saw was like, this song simultaneously sounds hundreds of years old because it's using medieval Japanese and thousands of years in the future. And I just saw like they nailed it with that description. It sounds kind of primal in a way because of the way that they're singing, but also fits so perfectly with this technological hellscape that they live in. This setting is, this city is really beautiful as well. But another thing about the introduction, of course, if you were paying attention, I think you were, there's another movie with another opening title that looks just like this one, The Matrix.
Oh, I was going to say Jurassic Park, but you're right about that too. Yeah, like even from the very beginning, you see the influences that this movie has had on so many other things. Like Major, like we see that she has like these neck ports that allow her to, as you mentioned, like allows her to connect to pretty much any internet or network that she wants. And that's something that the Wachowskis borrowed heavily for, like jacking into the Matrix and the Matrix. And then like the green, I was like, wow, this is a very clear influence here.
Yeah, they took the Wachowski sisters took a lot from this movie, a lot of influence on themes, on style. A couple of the scenes are almost identical. Different story, but it's so similar. And I think The Matrix is the live action adaptation of this movie. Very different. I've never seen the one with Scarlett Johansson. I don't think I would really care to, but Yeah, the parallels are just stunning. I guess also Avatar too, right? I mean, with the kind of connection as well, right?
Well,
With
James Cameron says this has been a big influence for him too. So
yeah,
and you can see that with some elements of the of Avatar.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I believe that yeah, the chief of Sector 6 ordered the hit on the diplomat. So Daita can't defect to probably America. But it's believed that the person who did this is this mysterious figure, the puppet master. And so Kusanagi and her team are trying to find these phone calls that are going around the city, to find out who's doing it, find out who the puppet master is. And from that point, I believe we start to follow these garbage disposal truck drivers. And one of them is making calls, talking about his wife and his daughter. And the other one is not interested in this criminal thing that he's doing because this guy, he says he got connected with somebody who can help him, deal with some of the things that he's got problems with, as long as he makes these calls and keeps it hush hush and all that. And then the police come violently, and they capture the guy who has the wife and daughter, so he thinks at least, and they chase down this other man who what's her name, Kusanagi, captures eventually. And I kind of want to think about this character who the garbage man, because first of all, as they're driving around, we see like, well, I mean, because this movie is so focused on like what it means to be human, what makes people human. It's kind of interesting that the environment that they're in is so heavily portrayed. I mean, there's so many shots just showing movement within the city or a still area of the city, and it's grimy and a capitalist hellscape as far as I can tell. And in a way, I feel like maybe it is trying to say something about definitely, I feel like your environment, right, is shaping your environment. I can't say it. The environment shapes humanity and the human experience, which seems pretty obvious, but to say, but the way that it is portrayed in the movie, I think, like, makes that so clear. Like, there's something very dark about everything that's going on, about this augmentation, about what the police are trying to do, and this like extrajudicial killing that they're doing as well, that we were introduced to our very fascinating characters. But this guy that's the garbage man, he has been hijacked. He doesn't have a family. He's been living in a bachelor pad for, I believe it was 10 years or a little under. I don't know what you thought about this character, if you made anything of him.
Oh, absolutely. It's like it was a really big like kind of moment for me in watching the movie. First, like as the man who is sort of helping, or like who we think is the puppeteer, I think initially, like they're looking forward at this person coming at them, and in the foreground you can see the person like saying they're coming, the police are coming, and in the background you can see Kusanagi and Bato coming, and it's a really cool kind of moment as they're tracking them down. That's what I like. But the idea of being hacked, where the ghost in the shell, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, that's the title of the movie. But like, it's very fascinating because it introduces questions, and like a scene later, Major even talks about it, of what's real and what's imaginary. Sort of like, this person's lived experience was that they felt like they had a family. Like, those are their memories, and they can never be changed. An officer, I believe, says that like there's always going to be flashes of those memories. They won't be able to completely take it away. So what is real and what is fake? And like, if you have those memories of like of like a family that never really existed, but their memories in your head, does that count as real or not? And it brings me back to like freshman year of college in philosophy. And really, I got a minor in philosophy, so it kind of continued through my educational experience. But talking about Descartes and the idea of the evil demon, where are we truly alive? If it's possible that there's like an evil demon out there who's manufactured our entire existence. And one of the supposed answers to that is the idea that, well, like, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. What matters is the pain that you feel. So like, this could be entirely imaginary, but if somebody stabs you, that's going to hurt. And so like,
right.
Like, it's your lived experience, and like it might not be real by any measure of that word, but like it's still there are still consequences for you. And for this hacked unfortunate human being, like, there are still consequences to living in this imaginary state. And I think even Major talks about that when she's talking with Bato.
Yeah. When she's talking with Bato, before we get, that's the next scene. But before we get to that, I just want to say, like, I agree that there is something about like this. With the movie is playing with this idea of the importance of memories, and how important is that for what makes a human a human. And I guess this was 1995. Looking at 2029, we're 6 years away, and it has me thinking, like, is that monster of a man from South Africa, Elon Musk, going to finally finish Neuralink, developing a Neuralink, getting it past the test trials and start producing it, giving it to people, or not giving it, but have it be something where people can augment their brain's capacity, and then this kind of thing could happen. But like you said, that's just doom and gloom in the mind for the future. But let's continue to the next scene with Bato and Kusanagi, which I think is my favorite scene in the whole movie. I think this is the most beautiful scene by far, because Kusanagi is doing the most human thing she can, even though I believe it's only her brain that is human. She's in a cyborg body. Mm-hmm. She's got some, I don't even think she has her whole brain. She has brain cells, from my understanding. But she's showed a whole lot of ennui, E-N-N-U-I, ennui, throughout this whole movie, about like, who is she and what's her place in life, and what does it mean to be a ghost in the shell, and all, how human is she, and that kind of thing. And she comes up, and Bato kind of scolds her for diving when her body could give out, and she could, I don't know if she would drown. She would just sink to the bottom, though, as a cyborg, and then never be found.
Yeah, be trapped forever, and the brain going crazy. That's that. I think that's something that like a lot of people talk about with immortality, because for all like for all purposes, she is immortal. Like, I doubt, right, like if nothing happened to her body, if she was just on the floor, like if her head was still there, like she would live for as long as it takes for her, like for her head to rust or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think they have to do like firmware updates or whatever. They talk about that on the boat. About they do have some heavy maintenance, and their life is like they're indebted and basic, kind of like slaves to Section 9's police force, because their life and their brain and or their ghost and their shell belong to Section 9, from my understanding, which is another horrifying reality of the future that this thing is getting at. But I mean, it's just so beautiful that she's like kind of losing herself, doing the only thing that I think like doing the only like really human expression of humanism or of being a human by kind of just trusting in doing that and finding some peace within, diving, even though it is a risk and does kind of scare her. I just love that scene. And I love that, like, she feels kind of free when she does it, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Because she feels confined in her body, and kind of trapped, which she is trapped in a literal way, because she literally belongs to Unit 9's police department.
Yeah.
What else were you thinking when you saw this scene?
Oh, it was very beautiful. It's the second montage in the movie, and I'll talk about like the third one when we get there. But like, it's like Bato is a very fascinatingly designed character too. Like he's not without his like debts to Section 9 as well. But at one point, Major talks about how her entire life could be imagined. Like this could not, like she could be this could be a simulated experience for her, which is which goes back to that like evil demon kind of argument, or the brain in the jar, brain in the vat kind of argument. But she then goes on to say that like even if those are fake, like it's her lived experience that matters. Like she knows that like her memories and her personality are her and only her, and like that's real. That's what's real about all of this. And it's getting at the larger discussion of the human experience. What exactly is a human being? And when you transplant the mind into something else, like what remains? What is the essence of the being of say a Mr. Nothing or a Lucas or a John Cena type? Like what does it mean to be that? It's more
hard to see.
What?
Hard to see John Cena.
Oh yeah, it's more than I was expecting out of this movie. I heard a lot of good things, but I did not expect it to kind of chase these sort of thoughts and sort of questions,
and really effectively in only 80 minutes. Before we continue to the next scene, there is another thing that I was thinking of. I don't know if you caught on, but I'm sure once I say it, maybe you were waiting till the end or something, but once I say it, I'm sure that you'll see it right away. It has to do with this scene that we just talked about, and when we were talking about the opening title being related to The Matrix. As I'm sure you know, The Matrix was created by the Wachowski sisters, who at the time were the Wachowski brothers, because they had not transitioned at that time. And they've recently come out to say that, in a way, the thoughts that they were having about themselves, that they hadn't come to terms with yet, definitely impacted the writing of The Matrix and this idea of taking the red pill or the blue pill, living in this false reality or whatever, or choosing to be yourself, that kind of thing. Is that movie, if I remember right, about 5 years ago or so, they both came out to say like, yeah, it's a movie with a strong transgender theme.
Yeah.
And I think this movie, although I don't No, I don't think the director, maybe even any of the writer for this movie or the writer for the manga are trans. Maybe it's not really trying to get at that, just transhumanism with augmentation. But the scene where she's looking, when she's diving and she's starting to float up and she sees herself in the water or the sky, I guess, when she's starting to float up, that started to make me think, like, is this also in a way a trans story, or can be interpreted that way? Because, she doesn't quite feel comfortable in her body by the end, when things change with the puppet master, which we'll get to. There is a level of happiness that she feels and enthusiasm for the future. But anyway, I'll point out some of those other things.
I definitely think there's room for that kind of argument.
Yeah.
Given that this is about like being comfortable in your own body,
Right.
like sort of being at peace with yourself, like those kinds of ideas. Like I feel like that's not out of place here.
I believe the next part is we see what looks like a woman naked walking down on a highway, and I've got to say that there is a lot of boobs and butts in this movie.
Oh yeah, I wrote that at the very beginning. I wrote boobs in my notes because like that. This movie is like it's 80 minutes long. It's very short, but it is not short of boobs.
No,
like Major's skin tight suit is very strange and like it's kind of pervy. It's one of the few things I don't like about her character design, in that it's like they want to call attention to her boobs, and I it's like I don't want to see. This is anime. I don't want to see boobs in my anime. I'm sorry. That's not what I come to anime for.
I had the opposite reaction, because I was just thinking, like, watching it the second time now, I was thinking, wow, I forgot how many nipples there were in this movie and how many butts there were and side boob and all that. But none of the male characters like even look at her in any kind of dirty way. They just see her as a professional, just see her as the major. They don't glance at her or anything like that. They don't make any comments. There's nothing sexual about her body, even though her boobs and butt and vagina are all out. Let's finally get to the next part.
Yeah, so you have the robot woman showing up, hit by a semi, and then
gets crashed into, and they find her. I think the Section 6 chief wants control, wants to snatch her up, but this, they're doing some tests. They have her kind of tied up. And they're trying to do some programming. All these secretaries have like 1 million fingers because their hands sort of open up, and they all look the same. I guess they're all clones of a kind. Not exactly clones, but the same model of android or whatever. Maybe there's something to say negatively about that. Commodification of women or something, I don't know what, but they're not there for too long, so there's maybe not enough context. But if I remember right, this is the puppet master, I know that, but it turns on by itself, right? And then it's demanding like asylum and refugee status, and wants wants political asylum because it's a conscious living being in
living information. Right. Yeah, not AI, living information.
Yeah, that's right. It's not AI. It makes that point clear that I'm not artificial intelligence. I am living information. And the chiefs there try to argue that, like, you're just saying that because of your programming, but then then the puppet master comes back with a real zinger that says, and they say like, your DNA is just your programming for self-preservation.
Oh yeah, that is a pretty heavy one. I should note this is Project 2501.
Yes.
That's its official name. Not really clear where it comes from exactly, but it's a fascinating sort of character. And another thing, you were talking about transgender. This is a female body, but the voice that comes out of it is a very cool sounding male voice. It reminded me a little bit of Lawrence Fishburne. I guess because of the Matrix connection, but the voice was deep enough that it was like, this is obviously a male voice here. So yeah.
Very masculine voice coming out. No mistaking it at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is that. That's the other another element that I was going to point out, but you caught on that. Yeah, this feminine body, I guess we should say, has a very masculine voice. Again, nipples out, butt out, all that stuff. Nothing between the legs dangling around. It's very feminine, but yeah, masculine voice, as you said. We're not sure what the origins of Project 2501, but it does seem that Section 6 has something up their sleeve, and they want this this project in their control, because there's some back and forth between the two chiefs about what's going on here, and eventually this puppet master is kidnapped, and Togusa, I believe, is the one who kind of figures out what's gone on and what's happened and how people came in to take the cyborg away, or the living information away. And Kusanagi immediately decides that she's got to connect with, well, not immediately from that point, but she's decided that she needs to make some connection neurally with the puppet master, and she immediately goes off to chase after. And Bato also goes along. And
but before that happens,
did I miss something?
There's a third montage in this movie, and I feel like that at that point it felt like, especially like it wasn't apparent until the end of the movie when it was very short. Like it felt very short. There's a lot of shots in this movie and a lot of montages that sort of just linger on. And if you have like one or two, it's fine. But there's 3 different montages. There are 3 different like extended musical points in this movie where it feels like it's only there to extend the runtime because it feels way too short. That's the only thing. That's the only like one of the few problems that I noticed. But it was just it felt a little bit comical at that point.
Sure. Well, I didn't feel that way because I felt like the montages were there to really show the life in this setting. Personally, and I mean, maybe having 3 little musical numbers throughout the whole movie when it's only 80 minutes, I can see your point, but I felt like maybe just because I loved seeing the city so much that I thought, and I was impressed by the visuals, I didn't have a problem with it. But they go to chase off after the puppet master, who is being who's in some kind of community center or warehouse. Stadium. Yeah, warehouse, that's right. Some large place with pillars, which is another directly stolen part in the Matrix when Neo has those guns.
Yeah, and that's interesting, yeah.
But Kusanagi is on her own. She's shut off her connection to Bato. Foolishly, and I guess to Togusa as well. And she eventually manages to get to the top of this tank, which is defending Project 2501, and she tries ripping the the seal open to get inside, but it breaks her body, and Bato eventually shows up. He's got this enormous gun with huge shells that destroys the tank, and he comes to help, and he helps her connect with Project 2501, and they have a really great discussion.
Oh, but before we get to that discussion, I want to Major's fight with the tank is really cool, but something that it really reminded me of, and this might be another influence, is Metal Gear Solid. Games that already existed before that, but Major's like outfit here mixed with the design of the tank reminded me of Metal Gear Solid, which would come out like 2 or 3 years after that. Yeah, and it's definitely like Hideo Kojima definitely watched this movie.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, that guy loves film. Yeah, now that you say it, I guess it did look familiar to me. I mean, I was just thinking The Matrix, but now that you say Metal Gear Solid, yeah, I can definitely see like Solid Snake in my head and the Metal Gear Solid machine. Wow. You've made another connection. The synapses are firing off.
Yeah, but and then particularly because the Metal Gear Solid games are filled with sort of philosophical discussions, just like what Major is talking about.
Deeply political, philosophical. Yeah, I feel like this had to be an enormous influence. You're right.
And that's even Raiden is a cyborg. Like he later becomes a cyborg, and like that's sort of one of the questions, especially in Metal Gear Revengeance, which came out later. Like it's one of the ideas that's sort of discussed there.
Yeah, with the merging, the puppet master proposes that he wants. He says what he wants. He wants what he really wants. It's not just political asylum, but he wants basically to be human. And his idea of what human is not about memories. It's not about consciousness. It's about the ability to procreate and die. His ideas are not about consciousness in terms of what life is, or about memories, which we talked about a little bit before, but procreation and the ability to die. And he believes that he's been searching for Kusanagi for a long time because he feels like they are very much alike. At this time, Bato tries to be safe and has a connection and says he's going to pull her out if he feels like there's trouble. But the puppet master has access to all kinds of networks. He's able to stop the Section 6 snipers that are coming for them for a while, temporarily disable them, because they're trying to kill Project 2501 and Kusanagi, to make sure nobody finds out about what's going on here. And they end up merging. And then
that's not something we find out until the
till the very end. We don't know what happened. At that point, we just find out that Project 2501's head gets blown to bits, and Kusanagi's also blown way off. Not her head is not blown up, but like Project 2501. But at that point, we're not really sure what happens, but we find out later that actually they did merge. But
it's because Bato, I think 2501 muted had Bato muted, so Bato he could see that they were talking, he just couldn't hear what they were saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Or Kusanagi's answer, which I think is particularly clever.
Yeah, that's right. So what did you make of this scene, this dialogue between the two cyborg people?
Yeah, it's once again getting at that question of what it means to be human, what is consciousness, what is what things mean in a time of human augmentation. As you noted, 2501 doesn't really give a damn about memories or actual questions of consciousness. 2501 is just hey, what it means to be human is to live and die. That's it. you have that experience of life, and at the very end you die, and that's all it takes to be human. Sure, there's probably a few extra things there, but
procreate, have children.
But that's like a huge philosophical statement right there, because it's like 2501 doesn't care if this is real or imagined. It's what's real is the act of going through the traditional human experience.
Right.
And it's very fascinating that's all that 2501 wants. Doesn't want to destroy humanity, doesn't want anything greater. It just wants the experience of being human to merge with Kusanagi here.
Yeah, that's right. I believe there is. I don't know if I think it was actually when the puppet master was tied up, but I think it does come back here if I remember right. There is a lot of talk about like, can you create a soul? If a soul exists, can you create it? Can the ghost be a soul? And does Project 2501 have one? And I don't even know what to make of that, because it seems like if consciousness is not so important, then I'm not sure if if life and death and procreation are the most important things. That's a pretty radical statement, I feel like, from the movie and the director and the writer and that kind of stuff, and that's pretty powerful. But I guess these like memorized, lived experiences, I don't know if that's the right way to call it. Some of them are real, some of them are not. Actually, Kusanagi's memories aren't real. They're made for her. Mm-hmm. She talks about that earlier. So, yeah, which I know you said that, but so then, she's this character we've been following. We've seen her ennui. We've seen her struggling so much with these deep philosophical questions, and here she's presented with an opportunity to, I guess, give her life meaning, which is why she accepts, because she, I guess, just realizes that maybe that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's what we find out that Major has merged. She's in the body of a little girl.
Yeah, found on the black market. That was kind of weird to me.
Yeah. But maybe that's getting at how they're the black market has its perverts, and how human augmentation and whatnot is going to do some creepy things too. But then she just goes off into the world and it ends there.
She says there's so many, where do I go next? There's so many possibilities. And she smiles for the first time and then it ends. And I guess, again, we could say here's where the transgender kind of theme comes back, fully actualized, fully realized, coming to terms with who they are, right? Making that change, and making the merge to use the terms of the film, at least, making the merger to be who you want to be. Because then at the end of the movie, they're both content with where they are. Maybe not the body, but they understand themselves better now.
Yeah.
If we want to go to that direction.
I think they have what they were looking for. Yeah. Project 2501 has created this new being and is finally, in their own view, human. And Kusanagi, I don't think they've completely resolved their concerns. I think Kusanagi was killed because, as Kusanagi notes, she's no longer the person known as Major, and she's no longer there's no 2501. There's only the new person of Major 2501 of this huge thing. So I think if you're negative, or one interpretation could be their Major was killed in this act, that in bonding with 2501, like maybe some of her memories weren't retained, but the original was killed off, and maybe she never really got the solace that she was looking for, or maybe in agreeing to it, that was the solace itself, and she was able to finally escape her servitude or something like that. And I think it's open to interpretation.
Yeah, and maybe in that way, then Project 2501 also got what they wanted in the same way. They died, so to speak, but they also, because of this merger, created new life, procreation, all in one go, and they can connect to whatever. Now the question remains, which character did you relate to the most?
Bato and his confusion of it all.
I was pretty confused too. What is going on? I think maybe for me, I don't know if I relate more to Togusa or to the garbage man in some way. I mean, I certainly haven't had like a false life implanted into my mind, but certainly there are times where I like think back to, I don't know, who I've been or what I've done, and I think like, are you sure that was me? Are you sure that wasn't me? You know, like, didn't I thought I did something else, or didn't I, you know, make a change in some way or something like that? But for Togusa, he doesn't get all these extra implants, and I feel like if we lived in that kind of world, I would be the same. I would only get the brain augmentation, and that is it.
It's a pretty scary world.
Yeah.
The idea of replacing yourself with technology, like you were talking about Neuralink and whatnot, and
yeah,
like I don't think I would ever move in that direction because, well, one, because I don't trust Elon Musk to actually produce something that won't kill me right away, but also the idea of putting like technology in your brain, and like, is that going to remove the very essence of you in some way? Like, like using a Star Trek transporter, is what's coming out on the other side, is that actually you, or is that a copy of you? It's a bit unclear, and I'm not quite sure that I want to answer that kind of question.
Well, I mean, I think the other side of it, like, to like make you afraid to not do it, would be like, if you don't get that kind of thing when it's like widely acceptable and I guess safe for people. You know, I mean, right now the Neuralink is killing all the poor animals that they're testing it on. But like, let's say there comes a time in the future where it does work and you're the only one who's not got the implant, or one of the few. There are always going to be plenty of people. But let's say it's something that the majority does start to use because they want to have any competitive advantage that they can in, you know, the workforce or whatever, at school, at their job, or just for whatever. If you don't have that enhancement, even just the brain enhancement, then you are going to fall way behind, because maybe their brain's capacity to do things is going to be advantageous. Maybe not for the job that you do in disability services, but just kind of in general, like maybe for like engineers, doctors, scientists, even lawyers, these kind of professional jobs, teaching even, which would make me in trouble. Like if you don't do it, that could potentially cause you a lot of harm in the future, financially at least. Yeah, a bit troubling, very worrying. But this world is like super cool to watch, but literally the scariest thing ever.
You can just be going about your business, and then suddenly someone hacks you and implants memories that you're a secret spy assassin. And that's not good. That's the new cybercrime, cyber reality that exists in this world. I think because I think what the writer in one, what they're all trying to say is that a lot of this technology has been implemented too fast, that humans often don't consider the implications of what they're doing. At one point, they even say, like, if humans have the instinct, like, if they see a new technology, they're going to go for it. But
Kusanagi says it.
If you do all of it too fast, like, you can't plan for the horrific situations that are going to arise.
Yeah, you can't adapt at all. I mean, I think you're spot on. Kusanagi says that on the boat with Bato, by the way, and it's dead on. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, what could have possibly led to this hellscape that they live in? And even if, like, you know, what I was talking about before, obviously, you know, Elon Musk is just a monster, absolutely horrible. But, like, let's say that Neuralink is developed, widely spread, I will resist as long as I can. Probably by then I'll be too old for it to matter. Thankfully, hopefully. That'll get developed. But technology moves so quickly. And it's seen here, like, they clearly did not adapt well enough to protect all people from being able to be hacked or anything like that. And also all this extrajudicial police activity seems like it's like this whole thing is a big, major, world-changing event. I mean, the merging of the Puppet Master and Kusanagi is a world-changing event. But this movie is like Tuesday. What's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
Because it's so quick, and, like, the diplomatic issues are resolved with some behind the door politicking. So you get the idea that this is literally just, you know, Tuesday or whatever, and other horrible things are going to be happening constantly. But, like, what led to this? It has to be a hyper-capitalist hellscape, because, I mean, the city is enormous, tons of skyscrapers, and we live in a hyper-capitalist world. We're from a hyper-capitalist country. This kind of technology that could be really wonderful to augment humans and benefit them, to advance the species as a whole, will be systematically used and abused in the worst ways, and advantage only the wealthy, and create horrible suffering for everyone else. And problems like this, where the police can hack into the internet and find you just using their mind, and this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a real nightmare, but it's cool as hell.
Yeah. For me, I really liked the discussion of the philosophy of technology and the mind, the cyberpunk aesthetic, and the music was really, really solid. The things I didn't like so much, it felt a bit short. It kind of just abruptly ends, and I guess in that way, it also just kind of doesn't overstay its welcome, and that's a good thing. It lingers on characters a little bit too long. It just feels like, oh, is this character going to say something else? Nope, it's just an extended 5 shots of them staring off into the distance. Again, probably to cover up the short runtime of the movie. And then also the xenophobia. It's like, it's not there all the time, but they do say a lot of things about immigration and deportation, and like the Americans, like it feels like this movie is like there's some sort of like xenophobia on the writers or the director's part. And given what I know, what you've told me about Japan, and that's how that's sort of a big thing for them about immigration and whatnot, the need to assimilate. Like that.
I mean, recently Japan has come out with some kind of, like, I don't know, task force or something to deal with immigration more strongly. I mean, it just came out like a week or two ago, something like that. So this is definitely like a xenophobic kind of policy still popping up. I would like to say that in the movie that it's probably a kind of criticism of this, but maybe it's not. I think maybe it's not. It's just like showing the reality of, like, Japanese politics. maybe not a criticism, not maybe endorsing, maybe not endorsing. I think it's just showing we have a xenophobic culture. Continue with what you were saying.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to also acknowledge that a lot of people didn't like the Ghost in the Shell live action movie. I've seen it because I think Franco, when I was living with him, watched it. But what's interesting is that I don't know if it's like they just had someone re-record the lines, but like Major Kusanagi sounds like Scarlett Johansson. And maybe someone watched this and was like, we got to get Scarlett Johansson in there. Like that's the only similarity between these two. But like it was, I wouldn't say it was distracting, but it was very noticeable that she sounds like Scarlett Johansson for some reason.
Sure. I watched the subtitled Japanese version, so I didn't hear that. Maybe that's why I didn't hear all the talks about America so much. There was one reference that I saw, I think, but that was it. Yes. Okay. So you watched the dubbed one. Great discussion with you, Mr. Nothing. What is the movie for August?
Yes. Since it's my turn to pick, I wanted to visit a classic that I had never seen before. I sent you a list of movies that whether or not you had seen. And unfortunately, I think one of the ones that I was really eager to watch is something that you had already actually seen. Yeah. So the one that I'm going to pick is a noir thriller. It's called The Naked City, which was released in the 1940s. And it's also somewhat of an influence on LA Noire, a video game that was released about 10 or so years back. It's pretty good video game. It had a number of issues, but it was also based on the idea of like detective stories and whatnot. So we'll be watching that.
Fantastic.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment. Go visit Lucas's channel over at The Bits of Lit. I'll link to it in the comments.
Strike the Sun MD now.
Oh yeah, Strike the Sun MD. Yeah. So if you have anything to say, comment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, of course, or possibly join the Discord. Lucas doesn't post there often, but when he does, it is always a treat. And until then, we wish you the best of luck in your weird and transhuman travels. Farewell.
Farewell.